In this video, we are going to go over what the best and worst niches are for a B2B lead generation agency, as well as what you should consider when choosing a niche. If you're new here, my name is Michael, and this video is part of a series where I show you all the things I've learned from growing my B2B lead generation agency to over 7 figures in revenue. So let's go ahead and get into the video. I've put together a virtual whiteboard here, and I want to answer 4 things. So the first is kind of my own mental distinction of the 2 categories of businesses you'll encounter when growing a B2B lead gen agency, the factors that I consider when choosing a niche, my 5 favorite niches, and 5 of my least favorite niches. So let's go ahead and start with the 2 categorizations of business. Now, I am generalizing here into 2 categories. There are obviously exceptions. Some apply, some don't. Some apply very strongly, some less, right? But these are 2 general distinctions of the types of businesses that I have encountered doing this for years now and serving well over 300 businesses. So the first category is what I classify as the young online entrepreneur. So let's go over what an average persona looks like here. They know the same influencers you follow: Iman Gadzhi, Alex Ramosi, Gary Vee, maybe Grant Cardone, kind of the bigger names that are more of a YouTube podcast names. They're probably 18 to 30 years old, so they're a bit younger. They probably didn't go to university and haven't worked a more corporate job, so they probably went from just normal jobs directly into business. They work on a fast and sometimes unrealistic time frame. Their ideas of launching things is in a week, 2 weeks, maybe a month. They're very high paced, which has positives and negatives. Sometimes they have a bit of an ego because they're successful and they're young, and maybe think they know more than they actually do. They haven't quite been humbled by business yet. They expect guarantees, and they generally know pricing. They understand what the rough price per lead, price per call, or retainer should be because they're very much in this space. They define themselves normally as an agency owner or something. They've probably tried cold email and done a relatively okay job using tools like Instantly and Smartlead because they probably at least are a little bit tech savvy. They make fast buying decisions, which allows you to have a quick sales cycle. They probably have a decent website and social media presence, just being tech savvy. And they generally think they know their sales numbers, but don't quite know their sales numbers. And that's either from poor tracking, lack of data, or sometimes even ego. So this first persona is where a lot of people start their agencies because these clients are generally easier to get. They're more responsive to cold email. They spend more time online. They generally already know about cold email. So when you're selling to them, there's not so much of a education and sales process, just a sales process. And you can get really good clients in this category, but also it can kind of force you into this give me a guarantee and fast timeline and 100 leads a month box, which sets the wrong expectations. Now, I have clients in this box. Maybe myself, I might be considered in this box. Actually, I would be. So I'm not saying it's bad. It's just one category where there's some ups or downs. So I just wanted to break that down. Now let's talk about the second category. The second category here, we're going to call the traditional business. Now, this person has no idea about your favorite online guru, or maybe they do, but probably not. They're likely between the ages of 30 to 60. They probably went to a university, and they likely worked as an employee in a corporate company, or maybe they are an employee, they aren't actually the owner. You're working with a CMO, head of sales, or somebody else in an organization. Now, they have a typical expectation that things take time to test and move at a more steady, slow pace because they've been working with more traditional agencies and are used to a 3-6 month time frames. They also don't expect guarantees and generally are used to 3, 6, sometimes even 12-month terms and setup fees. And they also don't know the pricing, or maybe they know it from more traditional space where they're used to $5,000, $10,000 a month agency retainers. They probably tried cold email before, but refer to it as a mail merge or email blast, and they likely wouldn't know technical things such as Instantly, Smartlead, Lemlist, or any tools like that. They generally make slower buying decisions that require multiple people because they're not normally the final decision maker, or at least they want advice from a colleague. And they also have a lot of big name case studies, but a lot of times they come with NDAs, so you can't properly use them, and they won't likely be displayed low. Now, they do know their sales numbers. They've been around for 10 or 15 years. Now, again, this is a generalization, but I have worked with both of these categories, and I personally prefer category 2. It comes with a longer sales cycle, a lot of education, a lot more approval, a little bit of bureaucracy, but I really like the kind of traditional retainer model. If you want questions on pricing answered, check out my last video. However, that is the category I like to go after. So when we go over my favorite niches and least favorite, I just wanted to break this down first so you have an idea of these two categories. Again, one's not better or worse. It comes down to personal preference and what you'd rather deal with, which for me, I really like category two. I'm okay for long sales cycle because I already have a lot of clients and a big pipeline. And I really enjoy having kind of these longer term validation periods with people that are just more study, right? They're normally also not so dependent on one agency as you're normally one of 10, 20, sometimes even 100 for really big companies. I want to briefly talk about what I consider for a niche before I go over my favorite and least favorite. Now, there's a lot of things, but I want to boil this down into four things I'm considering. The first one is the total addressable market. That's how many people are there. If you have somebody where they only have 2,000 people they can sell to, let's say they're operating in a small European country and they only target a specialized type of doctor. Well, maybe cold email would do well. Actually, it probably would. However, you're just going to run through contacts so fast that you won't be able to justify a retainer or even a large one-time payment because the market size is so small. So I generally avoid those. Now, I will sell them consulting to show them how to do it themselves, but I don't like to manage for them. The second thing I consider is a sales cycle. Now, this is not a make or break for me, but some agencies that work with, or just companies that work with really big other companies, may have a 1 year sales cycle. So the buyback period from your service to revenue might be longer, but as long as that's communicated and it's clear, it doesn't bother me, but it is something that I consider. The third thing is lifetime value and margins. Lifetime value is really important. If your client sells something that's $30 a month and their average lifetime value is 6 months, you're probably not going to be profitable with cold email. This goes for a lot of software companies that are lower ticket. They may have a great product, but if they don't have enterprise or scaled pricing, it likely doesn't make sense. Now, the second thing on that is margin. Sometimes you'll work with somebody that has a higher price point, but maybe they're in the product business and their margins just aren't very good. Because I want to make sure it's a no-brainer where my client makes more than they pay me, so they keep paying me. Because if we go back a couple other businesses, when I just talked about what is a B2B lead gen agency, the whole concept is you make your clients more money than they pay you. So I want to understand this upfront so expectations are set for what will and won't be profitable. Now, the fourth thing here is going to be competition. I'm considering how competitive is what they offer. Sometimes you'll find businesses where they're the only person in their market or one of 100, and sometimes it's an agency that has no differentiating factors and they're selling to the same audience every single other person is selling to. So I try to avoid those because even though you can get them results, it'll take 3 to 4 times more effort than another business which I would rather work with. So I am considering how competitive their service and their niche they're targeting is. And the final thing is targeting laws and red tape. There are some businesses I don't like to target just for liability or legal reasons, or if it's something that's very sensitive, I generally like to stay away from it. Now, I know there's money in a lot of these spaces, I just don't want to deal with it. So those are the 5 main things I consider. There's obviously more, but I just wanted to plant a seed for you to think about. Now, let's get into my top 5 favorite niches here. The first one is manufacturing. Now, I really like manufacturing when I find a company that manufactures their own product and sells it directly to businesses. I don't generally work with people that sell just to retailers, but occasionally. But the perfect scenario is when they manufacture a B2B product and sell it direct to businesses. I really like working with these companies because there's normally not too much competition because it's a high barrier entry business to get into. The second one is medical devices. These guys normally have big margins, they normally charge a lot, and if they have a very interesting device, it's not too hard to get meetings and leads with. The third is accounting, but I'll also throw in tax advisory. Really like working here. It's a more more traditional industry where there's not that much competition. Now, the fourth is content creation. I like working with people that do, either on-site or just editing. Content creation has been a pretty good one for us. And the last one is service-specific agencies. Agencies is a super broad term, and I am selective in terms of who I work with, in terms of their case studies, their USP, their offer, their branding, their following. But when I find an agency that's very specific on a service and all the stars align, I really like working with them because they normally have a big total addressable market and we can get them pretty good results. Now let's move over here to my top 5 least favorite niches. Now, the first one here is almost anything targeting HR. I really don't like targeting HR as I find that getting them to do anything that requires work is very difficult. I also don't like loans, just kind of personal and also business. I just don't like selling loans of cold email. I find it's very competitive and there's very little differentiation. Same thing goes with insurance. There's very rare cases where someone who's selling insurance has something that's truly unique. Non-service specific agencies, these are kind of I do everything agencies. They generally are hard to get results for because normally they've grown for word of mouth. And the last one is Amazon services, because building lists around Amazon is actually way harder than you might think because there isn't a great tool to grab their emails and they're normally just doing like Amazon fulfillment and don't have a real business beyond that. So it's quite hard to get contacts. And there you have it. Those are my 5 least favorite niches and favorite niches. I hope this helped if you are looking to choose your niche. And if you do want more help building your B2B lead gen agency following the same tactics and principles I use to grow mine to 7 figures, make sure to check out Grow B2B. There is a link in the description. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.